Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Genexus webinar. The multi-experience era, the rise of the chatbot in your enterprise application. My name is Jaime Gonzalez from Genexus in Montevideo, Uruguay. I am country manager, and I am joined today by my colleague, Rodrigo Mendez, who is pre-sales advisor to the commercial team. We know you have a lot of offers and supply of webinars out there, and would like to thank you for choosing this webinar to share 1 hour of your time with us. Webinars from Genexus have been watched by over 7,000 people all over the world in more than 30 countries. So we thank you a lot for all your support. I see some familiar faces in the audience today, not faces, more than names, but I'm glad to see all of you back. Well, today we're going to talk about chatbots and Genexus. As you know, we have been following chatbots in Genexus for a while now. In fact, we have included and integrated the chatbot generator in Genexus, a full upgrades pack. And if you have been to our event, our annual event in Uruguay, you may have interacted with our chatbot because it was added to our application, the event application, a couple of years ago. So if you have joined us in our event in Montevideo, you may have experienced the chatbot in that application. And we think that there is an opportunity for the Genexus community regarding chatbots, and that's what we want to discuss today. So now I'm going to show you, as you are seeing, a picture of a sport that some of you may recognize. And I would like to ask you if anyone in the audience recognizes this sport, to jot down the name of the sport in the chat on your right. So I give you a couple of seconds for that. I know it wasn't all that popular outside South America. It was very popular in the 90s. In Uruguay, in Argentina, and in Paraguay mainly. And JP, we have the first answer, which comes from South Africa. Thanks, JP, for joining us. And he knows that is paddle. I think I suspect why he already knows the name of the sport, and we're happy to see that he learned about it. Yes. JP is correct. The name of this sport is paddle. As you see, it's a cross between tennis and squash. And as I was saying, it was very, very popular in the 90s down here. Actually, from one day to another, cities like Montevideo, Buenos Aires, and Asunción in Paraguay were flooded with these courts. And I would say that every 2 blocks you found a court like this. Everyone who had a plot of land which was not being productive, they would invest in one of these courts in the city, and they would rent out playtime for people who would get out of work and wanted to let off some steam. They would rent a couple of hours and play with their friends. Now, the truth is that this was just a passing fashion. It's very difficult to find any of these courts nowadays, so it ended up being just as an internet cafe or a video rental store. It was a passing fashion, and it proved to be something of the moment and a very bad investment at the end of the day. And to be honest with you, this was my first impression when I came about chatbots. Now, I wanted to check if this was just a feeling and what the authorities thought about it. So I checked Gartner, and the technology consulting firm, which has reviewed Genexus several times and has included Genexus in the Magic Quadrants. And according to Gartner, by 2022, that's only 2 years from now, 70% of white-collar workers will interact daily with chatbots. So 70% of the people who are here in this audience today, watching this webinar, will interact with chatbots daily in 2 years' time. Okay, I don't know if you already did in your jobs. Apparently, according to Gartner, this is what's going to happen. And from this, we have an indication that this may not be a passing fashion like paddle, but something that is here to stay. So if I do a Google search, just a Google search for chatbot in the search engine, I get three results, the first three results are ads. Okay, they are advertisements of people who want to sell chatbots to me. Now, anyone who is in digital marketing knows that if a word such as this brings the first three results as ads, this is something that is very trendy at the moment. Also, if you check Google Trends and the search for the chatbot word, you'll see that there has been a surge in searches for this word in the last few years. So these are more indications that it's something that it's happening right now and that is here to stay, and that we as Genexus developers can take can have an opportunity and can take advantage of. Okay, so what chatbot types are there? Well, basically we have two types of chatbots. One that is called the scripted chatbot, which is one based in commands, where it's like a menu where you have options. And on the other hand, we have another one which is quite interesting, which is the natural language processing chatbot, which is the NLP, which has the interaction with the machine who has been trained to understand the intention of human language. Now, the scripted chatbot was the original one, and it goes back to the times or has its ancestors when you picked up the phone and you called, for example, an airline, and you interacted with a machine, which through the use of keypad, the telephone keypad, or through voice recognition, you could, for example, confirm an airline ticket. The voice recognition never worked very well in my experience, but that may differ from you. And these were like the ancestors. Now we have chatbots which are, as we were saying, scripted, which are based on a series of options, which is very controlled and very limited, okay? So basically there's a menu, there are certain options which can be words or numbers, and from then you interact with the chatbot. Now we have the other one, which is the NLP chatbot, which as we were saying has a counterpart, which is really a machine that has been trained to understand human language and intention. This demands the participation of vendors, for example, IBM Watson or Google what was the name again? Dialogflow. Sorry for that. Google Dialogflow, which provides the artificial intelligence which is going to understand the human request. As you know, human language is much more complicated than programming language. So there are many ways of saying the same thing and asking for the same thing. And this will be later showed by Rodrigo. But the machines, the artificial intelligence provider has been trained to understand and give the appropriate answer to questions that are posed in different ways. Now, what opportunities do we see there for the Genexus community and for those who are onboarding the Genexus community at the moment? First of all, we must understand that we're moving all the applications into a multi-experience world. All our applications are moving to a multi-experience reality, okay? So this is something that we have been focusing on in the past years in Genexus, and actually Brogan Gonda, one of our founders, has made reference to it in our annual event. So this chatbot thing is really another phase of multi-experience that your apps must have, okay? So it's another dimension. We have been used to the mobile dimension, to the web dimension, or the web phase of our application. Now we have new ones, which are the progressive web applications and APIs. And this chatbot comes to be another phase of your application. But the knowledge that is captured in your application remains the same. Okay, it's the way we portray it and we interact with the exterior that really change. And that is what chatbot comes to talk about. So really, what we are doing as we always do in Genexus, we are capturing the knowledge in your applications, knowledge from your business rules, from your business processes, and then we are portraying it out through this other channel. So now I want to pass on the baton to my colleague Rodrigo, who will be talking from a more technical view about chatbots in Genexus, and for what I understand is the most interesting part of the presentation. So Rodrigo, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime. But I would like to begin approaching to the concept of chatbots in Genexus is through the most basic type of chatbot to begin with, which is the scripted chatbot. Okay, as Jaime told, the scripted chatbot relies heavily on commands. Okay, and these commands are static user inputs. Okay, that must match entirely with the different options. Okay, in order for the chatbot to understand what the user wants. Okay, to put it in an example, we can have a user that is the customer of a shopping mall, for example, which communicates through the application, the mobile application, or through a web application with a chatbot, okay, designed in order to assist the customer. Okay, since this chatbot is scripted, the chatbot would offer different and static options, okay, in order for the customer to select a matching option. Okay, in this case, it would be, for example, places to eat by the input of the value 1. Okay, meaning that the user would like additional information on places to eat, and with the input command of 1, the chatbot would understand, okay, that it should trigger the conversational flow, okay, for the procedures or the objects defined in our knowledge base in Genexus in order to provide food court indications. Okay, but as we said before, the scripted chatbot is a very static case and simple case regarding the user experience. Okay, as we may note, we have some advantages and some disadvantages upon using scripted chatbot. What are the advantages? First of all, as it's very simple, okay, it's fast to develop and to put into production, okay, because there's not a big complexity, okay, upon the development process of that chatbot. And the other benefit is that this scripted chatbot is independent from having to access to external services such as natural language processing services that are offered by different providers with different deals or different commercial conditions. Okay, so those two are the main advantages, and of course the main disadvantage of this type of chatbots is that the interaction and the user experience between the user and the application is rather quite simple. Okay, given that it has static user inputs and a predefined set of options in which the user can establish communication with the chatbot. Okay, but moving forward and onto the other case, the NLP chatbots are the new breed of chatbots that arose from the starting or the giant leap that artificial intelligence service took in these years. Okay, all of these services allow to have more computational power in order to process better and to understand better what the user can has as an input. Okay, and in this case we could develop an NLP chatbot, okay, relying on all of those services provided by natural language processing services. Okay, so what we can accomplish in this case is to recognize from different expressions that the user will input into the chatbot, okay, and to associate them with different intentions that we have programmed in our chatbot in order to detect what the user is referring to, okay, while using the application. So, for example, in the shopping mall, okay, case, we have the customer that, for example, could type in more complex phrases, okay, such as "I'm hungry, I would like some coffee," or "Where can I get a hamburger?" And in this case, the chatbot would send that message to the provider, okay, to the natural language processing provider, which can be Dialogflow from Google or IBM from Watson from IBM, sorry, as Jaime mentioned previously. And those services would be able to recognize, okay, those phrases and match them with a degree of confidence to the different intentions defined in the model that is hosted in this NLP service, okay? So the NLP service would be able to recognize if the phrase is related to the food court, for example, conversational flow, or if it's maybe directed to another conversational flow, okay, that has been designed in this chatbot. For example, in this case, clearly for us that we're humans, we can understand that these phrases are all related to what could be giving food court directions to the user. But in any other case, we might have in account or in consideration phrases, for example, regarding deals in certain shops or different type of articles that the user is interested on purchasing while at the shopping mall, okay? And we can model all of that using the chatbot generator in Genexus, okay, that will eventually send those models to the different natural language processing services, okay? Let's see a little bit more on how does that work, okay? And what can we do specifically with the chatbot generator in Genexus? At the beginning, what we'll be able to define is the different conversational flows, okay? The different kind of topics or subjects that the end user, okay, through the application or through the website will be able to engage in conversation with the chatbot, okay? So we will be defining the conversational model, okay? And if we're using an NLP provider, Genexus will also send that conversational model, okay, automatically to be created in the provider that we have selected, okay? So that's for the conversational model, okay, that it's defined on Genexus and also sent to the NLP provider, okay? After that, regarding the UX, you will be able to define whether your chatbot, okay, it's to be displayed on a website, okay? You can generate the UX for web applications, and you can also select to generate the chatbot for mobile applications, okay? So you'll be generating as well in order to keep all of the phases of the multi-experience that Jaime just mentioned, okay? By having chatbots in all of the fronts of your systems and in your applications, okay? So we'll be able to define, as I said, mobile and web applications to have the chatbot, but also as well, we will be able to integrate, okay, that chatbot defined and the usage of the NLP service to other messaging channels, such as WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, for example. And what we'll be able to do is to, using different agents for the APIs, we will be able to engage with our customers or our end users through those messaging channels, such as WhatsApp and others, okay? So those three things are the main strengths, okay, of the chatbot generator. We have the conversational model, the possibility to present that conversational model in different user interfaces, and to integrate that conversational model with third parties messaging channels, okay? So for this webinar, what we have created, okay, is a sample that we have live and working on WhatsApp. Okay, what you have to do is to add the number on the screen to your contacts. Okay, I'm gonna type it down on the chat. And after that, you have to, since you're connecting to a test environment provided by Twilio, which is the API agent that we're using to connect the chatbot created in Genexus to WhatsApp, you'll have to enter a code in order to subscribe to that sandbox, okay? So I'm gonna type down the number. This is the number, and once you added that contact, what you need to do is to type in this as you were talking to that contact in WhatsApp in order to subscribe to this sandbox and be able to try out the chatbot that we created for this webinar. Okay, so once you join, you have to type in join smaller dash. Okay, I left it in the chat, so if you want to copy it and try it on your WhatsApp Live, I'm going to share my screen now and show you guys what you'll be dealing with, okay, on the side of Genexus, okay? What does this chatbot has on the back, okay? So now what you're seeing is the different conversational flows that we have defined for this chatbot, okay? I'm going to start taking a look at the first conversational flows. For example, the first conversational flows are, as we said, this is a scripted chatbot. So conversational flows, as you may remember, are triggered by static inputs, okay, which we will be defining by this property here, trigger messages. If the user, okay, starting a conversation with the chatbot at any given time enters this value, okay, this will be detected as the trigger message to this conversational flow, which is what are chatbots, okay, that will have as a response the following text, okay, which in Genexus we can edit at any given moment, okay. We can also set more complex things, okay, more complex properties such as conditions that have to be met in order for this message to be displayed to the end user, okay. Since we don't have any condition here, the message will be sent to any given user that inputs the number 2 on the messenger chat, okay? Well, since we take a quick look at the first conversational flow, now I would like to show you some of the properties of the conversational flow instance. The conversational flow instance is the object that Genexus have in order to create different chatbots, okay? At any given moment, we can create a new object in our knowledge base, selecting the chatbots category, okay, and we'll select the conversational flow and assign a name to it, okay? Once we assign the name, we will see that for each conversational flow or for each chatbot, we have a set of properties that are quite interesting, in fact, which will determine how we want to use that chatbot in our application, okay? In this case, I see at the beginning of my properties tab that I have enabled, okay, the web UI generation, meaning that upon defining the different conversational flows within this chatbot, the UI will be generated automatically for web applications, okay? I also can set the enable smart devices UI generation in order to create automatically all the screens, okay, and panels for my mobile application, okay? As you can see, this property is set to false in this example. Here as well, I can define, for example, an escape message if the chatbot, for example, doesn't understand any of the inputs entered by the user, okay? For example, a typical input of not understood messages is that the chatbot saying, I'm sorry, I did not understood what you meant by this option. And what I can do is provide information on different shops, provide food court indications, and so on, okay? That's a classical escape message in case the input does not match with any of the conversational flows defined, okay? You can as well redirect, okay, if the input is not matched, to a different program in Genexus or a different object in Genexus, okay? And now some interesting properties that we can set here. For example, we can define if this conversational flow instance is going to be an scripted chat or an NLP chatbot, okay? And how we can set this is by choosing the provider, as we mentioned before. At the moment, we support 2 different providers, Watson from IBM and Dialogflow from Google, okay? If we chose any of these, we would have to set, okay, the different credentials, okay, for the account that we have either on Watson or on Dialogflow, okay? We need to authenticate and provide our API key. And this is the part where we have to get information on what Watson offers us as an NLP provider and what does Dialogflow offer us as another NLP provider, okay? So for this example that you might be trying right now as we speak, is a simple chatbot. So we have set the property of NLP provider to none, okay? What we have done here is we have set the property of enable WhatsApp to true, meaning that we will use WhatsApp as a messaging channel, okay? And we will be working to enable that through different partners. In this case, we have set Twilio to be our partner, which is the API that will be in the middle between the WhatsApp and the application generated by Genexus, okay? We also have to set up an account for establish that, in order to establish that connection between our application and WhatsApp through Twilio. Here we have provided a Twilio token, which is, as I said, the handler between the messages going through WhatsApp and our knowledge base, okay? Well, just to give some further detail with the application, what I would like you to see is, this is the web application that we have created, okay, with the chatbot, with the project that you are seeing here. So this IDE, besides having the conversational instances, has other objects, okay? Here we can see a transaction in which we will store presenters, and here a transaction in which we will store the scores, okay? So let me show you the application, okay, that resulted upon running this knowledge base. As you can see here, we have both the presenters and the score, but additionally, we have other tiles in this menu, okay, that are tiles that were created automatically while we set to use the chatbot generator and create conversational flows. Let me show you very quickly what these tiles have, okay, and what information do they provide, okay, for the developers. In this case, we have the GX chat messages. That is what the Genexus chatbot, okay, created automatically in Genexus in order for us to keep track and to manage all of the messages that arrive, okay, to the chatbot instances that we have defined, okay? So here in this list, what you can see basically it's a different ID for each message, okay? A different ID for each user that sent the message, the content of the message, okay? The message type, meaning if the message was sent to the user or received by the chatbot, okay? The date in which the message was sent or received, and the device, okay? Here, for example, we have the phone number of the person that interacted through WhatsApp with our chatbot, okay? And here, finally, we have information regarding to the chatbot that was handling, okay, the communication. In this case, this name is the name that we have given to our conversational flow instance, okay? So if we have different chatbots, we will be able to see, okay, which chatbot handled which conversation with the different users, okay? It's important because this information, it's displayed like this automatically, but you from Genexus can further develop, okay, your system in order to handle this information for reporting aspects or for decision-making aspects within your system, okay? It's important because here you have the whole log of the communication with your chatbot, okay? this also is an important feedback, okay, in order for you to realize if your chatbot is being useful for the end customer, okay, because we may put a lot of effort upon thinking on the flows and how our chatbot should provide information and value to the end customer, but at the end of the day, will be the customer, the one that will let us know if the chatbot is working and if it is useful, okay? So I'm going to go back to the main menu of our application. And I will show you here that we have, as we enable the property for the web generation, we have this option, which is the UI for us to chat, okay, with the chatbot that we program, okay? So here we have a very simple chat that can be embedded in any other part of our system, okay? So I type 1 to bring the menu with all of the options of the chatbot, okay? So here we can see that the chatbot told me all of the options. In this case, as we remember once more, this is a scripted chatbot. So if I press 1, I will access to the main menu, which I am now here. And if I press 2, I will see the option number 2 and so on, okay? So for example, as I gave you the introduction to the first flow, what are chatbots? Remember that the trigger message was 2, and here it would be displayed the message, okay, after we hit 2. So if now I input the option 2, I receive automatically the response, okay, giving me information regarding what are chatbots and how do they add value, okay? The first 6 options, okay, will all of them return information for us, okay, plain text information. But the next options are more interesting because they will interact, okay, with other elements, okay, of our knowledge base, okay. For example, now I would like to show you what does the number 10 option does. In this case, the option reads who are the presenters, and we'll take a look, going back to the main menu, that we have here defined different presenters, okay? In this case, we have a record for the presenter Rodrigo Mendez, another for Jaime, and we have created a new field called a presenter, which is an example, okay? So this is stored in our database, a database that Genexus created and is managed, okay, through the use of this web application, okay? So from the chatbot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for who are the presenters, and I would like to do it as well from the WhatsApp chat so you can see it. I'm going to So here I'm going to show the menu. Here I have the contact that I added. It's the same number that I gave you through the chat, okay? So I'm going to type in 1 again just to get a look at the menu. This is a bit slow today. Okay, so here we'll type in 10 to see who are the presenters of this webinar. And here we got the answer from the chatbot that went and read, okay, executed first a procedure that went and read all the records in our database, okay, regarding all of the presenters, okay, and then returned us a message, okay, that we have set as a part of our conversational flow. Okay, I'm going to execute this as well from the WhatsApp channel, okay, and here we can see that the chatbot answered as well through WhatsApp, okay. At any given time, we will be, if we update the presenters, if we create a new presenter, a new record will be added, okay, in the database, and the chatbot will also as well retrieve it, okay. So let me show you what we are doing in the flow of Who Presents, which is the flow that we have given to go get the information about the presenters and to show it to the user, okay? This flow is triggered by the message 10 because it's the option number 10. And we have said that in particular, this flow has a conversational object. What's a conversational object? A conversational object is a procedure that we have defined in our knowledge base. And within that procedure, we can define what the chatbot will do, okay, and what parameters does it need. And once we define which procedure we will establish as a conversational object, the chatbot generator in Genexus will read those parameters, okay, and will understand them to be part of the conversational flow. In this example, in this particular case, the procedure of get presenters, I'm going to show you here the procedure, only returns, okay, a list of the presenters, okay? So as the parameter only is an out variable, okay, what the conversational flow instances will create automatically this response parameter, okay, and we will be able to include it, okay, on the message that we are sending to users. As you can see here, we have the ampersand presenters list, okay, referring to the variable that it's sent as an output parameter, okay? So let's take a look to this procedure. This procedure is quite simple. What we are doing is we are going through all of the records in the transaction presenter, okay, and we are joining the names and the description on a list that is delivered in the form of a string, okay, with a variable length up to 300 characters, okay? It's quite simple, but we could work on giving more complexity to this procedure. We can either return, for example, the image that we have uploaded for us to be able to see on WhatsApp, as well as the name and the description of the presenter and image, okay? In this case, we also define this webinar to be able to be voted, okay, in which we can add votes, for example. Okay, here the other presenter was added. Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to ask again for the presenters, and I should get the fourth presenter that I just added, okay? So going back to additional features in this example, we have the possibility to score this webinar, okay? Here we have the scoring list, okay? Here I'm going to set a new score, okay? Has to be a value from 1 to 10. I'm going to give an 8. So this is the last record. And from the WhatsApp, we can also check on the amount of votes. For example, by the value by entering the value 8, we will get the amount of the votes, okay? So here we can see that the chatbot went and counted all of the votes that the transaction scores had, okay, and returns the answer to the user. We can also, as well, get the average score of the presentation by the input of 9. And here, the chatbot will execute a similar operation, but instead of counting, taking in consideration the average score of all the votes issued, okay? So this is a quick introduction into the world of scripted chatbot being generated by Genexus, what we can do, okay? And a brief introduction to the chatbot generator as well, okay? And before ending this webinar, what I would like to show you and to invite you to try out, okay, is this sample, okay, of a chatbot that is based on the chatbot that Jaime mentioned previously that we had on our event. It's a chatbot that is using an NLP provider, okay, and which has different flows determined. This chatbot was based on our event, so it has flows to give more information about some of the services on the hotel that we hosted the event, such as the Wi-Fi password, the location of the bathrooms on each floor, details from the speakers, okay, and from the sessions that each speaker had, okay. And as we can see, for example, just to show you a quick look, since this is a NLP chatbot, the trigger messages can be of a wider range. Okay, here we have the opening flow, okay, which is the first message that the user can give in order to start the communication, and we can see that this is all of the trigger messages that are sent as a part of the definition of the model that we will be sending to the NLP provider, okay? So what will happen is once the user inputs the first word in the chat, that word will be matched for to get a confidence degree, okay, taking in comparison all of these words of greetings, okay? Hello, hola, in different languages, okay? So based on the input of the user, the chat will give a level of confidence or certainty, okay, that input corresponds to the flow of the opening. Once the flow of the opening is initiated by an input that has a high level of confidence to any of these messages, the chatbot will ask for the username, okay? And after that, the user will be able to ask for different things to the chatbot, okay? For example, here we can see a flow that it's about Rudy. Rudy was the name of this chatbot, okay? Where you can ask if the person on the other side of the WhatsApp number is a real person, okay? And Rudy will answer you in a different set of answers, sorry, okay? So I have this knowledge base here running. What I would like to show you very quickly is the basic interactions of the user with the chatbot. Let's see what does the model understand by hello, how are you? Rudy already asked for my name when I executed the chat before, okay? So after I gave my name to Rudy, Rudy is issuing a welcome message with my name and a link to the meetings in the website, okay? So I'm gonna ask Rudy now if Rudy is real. So in this case, I should be triggering the message in which Rudy gives me this answer, okay? So what just happened was that I'm sorry, this is not the project here. So what happened is that my message had a high level of confidence or similarity with some of these trigger messages. Therefore, the chatbot entered the flow called about Rudy, okay? And Rudy, as a response, gave me one of these answers. In this case, was I'm Rudy, your virtual assistant. Okay, this is the basic walkthrough on how the NLP chatbot works. Okay, we can combine the things that we saw in the scripted chatbot, such as the interaction with different objects on our knowledge base for the retrieval of key information that we would like to communicate to the end user. Okay. So the last thing I want to mention regarding NLP chatbot is I'm going to access my Watson space. So you can see that I have my model created by Genexus. Okay. What you can see here by the right side is the model that was created. Okay. When I loaded, okay, this knowledge base and hit on this option, generate chatbot. Okay, the generation of the chatbot created the model, okay, and inserted it automatically on the Watson instance that I set as the property. Okay, so here we will be able to access the intents, okay, the entities, all of that was created by Genexus. Okay, so you as a developer using Genexus Chatbot Generator won't have to mind about this aspect of the creation of a chatbot because Genexus will handle it for you. Okay. This model is modified or updated anytime we make changes on the conversational flows and click on generate chatbot, or if we want, we can synchronize the chatbot to send also as well the new updates to the model that we have in the IBM instance. Okay, here's the properties of the authentication with my Watson assistant instance. Okay, so I think that's it for a basic introduction. I would like you to try this out if you like. This is the knowledge base that I showed regarding the natural language processing, okay, chatbot. I will leave it on the chat here. This is an XPC that you'll download and you'll create, you'll load in your knowledge base, okay? And you will have all of this information. For example, here we have a picture of the user asking for the bathroom, okay, which the chatbot automatically detects and sets in motion the conversational flow regarding bathroom information, which has to ask in which floor is the user, and after the user provides an answer, the chatbot will deliver, okay, an image giving indications to the bathroom within the event. Okay, so I invite you to try this out and to keep in touch if you had further questions or doubts about the execution of this sample. So I'm going to stop sharing and we can go to the most interesting part, the questions. If you have some, we'll happily answer them. Right, Jaime?
That is right. So you can drop your questions on your right, on the chat, on your right, and we have activated the Q&A section. So I'll read the first one. Thank you, our backstage team, for pulling up the question. Danielle, thanks for joining us from Italy. It's quite late in Italy. Thanks, Danielle, for being here with us. Hi to all. Is it possible to use Genexus chatbot system to create a chatbot for technical assistance using a dozen documents containing the answers to the most frequently asked questions that the user can ask? If so, do I have to train the system by defining the questions and answers a priori, or is the artificial intelligence engine able to handle this aspect by itself? And finally, which artificial intelligence engine can do this?
Well, Daniel, thank you for your question. In this case, when defining a chatbot instance, in this case, you would have to modify it manually, okay, upon noticing that you have to include new questions, because those questions would be new conversational flows, okay, within the instance, okay? So what you can do is, based on all of the information that Genexus stores automatically, taking in consideration the communication, the number of communications established by the user, you could access key information in order to define whether your questions are indeed frequently asked or maybe not so frequently asked, and maybe you, with that information, could make different changes to your model, okay? The changes should be manually in the conversational flow instance that we saw in Genexus. If you're using a natural language provider to enhance the chatbot, okay, and you make changes in Genexus, those changes will be impacted automatically without need for you to go to the instance, for example, Watson or Dialogflow, and make the changes there, okay? But yes, you need to make the changes in the conversational flow instance in Genexus in order to update it, okay?
Good. Next question. JP, thanks for joining us again. Could one use voice recognition as an input and then finally have a working telephonic voice recognition? Interesting question.
Yes. JP, for now, what we are dealing with is text messages from the web application, okay, and from the mobile applications as well, and through also the messaging channels that we have. Maybe in the future, you will be able to link, okay, as an input, different services, okay, such as voice recognition, or maybe the possibility for the user to send you an image and the image to be processed as an input using an AI service in order to trigger different responses. Maybe that will come for the future. For the moment, is text as an input, okay? We have different forms of output, but as an input is text.
Okay, JP is adding in the chat that it would be a WhatsApp voice note, like a voice recording. Okay. So yeah, what Rodrigo mentioned applies. Next question is from Nabil. Thanks for being with us, Nabil. Is it possible to mix in the chatbot between text and voice, such as reading menu by voice and selecting option required by text?
Nabil, not that I'm aware at the moment. The answer is very similar to the one I gave to JP. For the moment, the inputs may be only by text. What you can offer different outputs to the image, to the user, whether by image or text as well, okay?
Okay, text to speech, that was what we mentioned. Thanks, JP, for clarification. Miguel, thanks for writing to us. Miguel, how can we ask for certain data from a user, identify each piece, and be able to answer with the result to a web service call?
How we can ask for certain data from a user, identify each piece, and be able to answer. Well, Miguel, as you may have seen in the application, you have the information, you have different users that have contacted the chatbot, okay? In the case of WhatsApp, you store the number, okay, from which they are addressing to the chatbot, okay? You can set something like a session for each number, and then you could have the user pinpointed, okay, and you could deal with that information. But at the moment of designing a chatbot, you have to be very careful on the functionality of the chatbot. The possibility of chatbots sometimes invites the imagination, okay, and the reality tends to be quite different, okay? As I said, we can put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into the design stage, but eventually the chatbot, okay, the use of the chatbot is made and approved, okay, by the end user. So if the chatbot starts to not offering the results for the users, it won't be very successful. Yes, with the different flows that you have, you can set conversational objects, which can be procedures that from the inputs that the user gives, okay, can check information and integrate with all of the objects in Genexus, okay? And as you may know, all of the objects in Genexus are capable, okay, to address, okay, other services via APIs or consume other services through REST or SOAP. So you can do a lot of integration, okay, from a single procedure that it's set as the conversational object for a flow. Okay, I don't know if that's clear for you, Miguel.
We can also follow it up with an email.
Yeah.
So please, Miguel, feel free to contact us. Juan says the Twilio prices for WhatsApp are 0.0565 per message, or using Genexus is different. So pricing for Twilio.
Juan, yes, I don't know exactly the price. I know that it's not free, okay? The sandbox that you have made trade out during this webinar, okay, it's a trial account. Trial accounts have like a, I don't know, $15 credit on them. And yes, each message that is received through Twilio, okay, and sent to Genexus has a price. It's a very small fee. And you can also set Twilio to send messages to the users, and that has a quite higher fee, okay? But yes, it's important that you ask this question because Twilio or some of the other partners that you may find are not free, okay? They charge, maybe it's a small price, but they charge, and it's important to keep that in mind, okay?
Correct, that's right. If you're thinking of working with a chatbot generated in Genexus and that integrates with WhatsApp, you have to bear that into your equation of costs, okay? Juan has a question in Spanish, which I'll translate for all the audience. So is it possible for the menus to be dynamic from a transaction? That's a Genexus transaction. Another doubt, is it possible that the robot learns from the answers, for example, from a salutation or greeting?
Juan, thank you for the question. I will answer in English if you don't mind. No, it's not possible to retrain in a dynamic way the chatbot, okay? At the time being, the chatbot has those conversational flows defined, okay? With those trigger messages also defined as well, and they require to be updated by the developer if there's a need to do it, okay? We really would like to, and we're aiming to create a small dynamism as possible with the chatbot, okay?
Good, thank you for your question, Juan. I think that was the last one, and it was just in time, so it's an hour from the moment we started. I'd like to thank you all for being with us this afternoon for us in Uruguay. Remember that this webinar has been recorded and will be available in our YouTube channel and our webinar site. Remember to go often to the Genexus webinar site to check any webinars you may have missed and relive them, or to join us for the upcoming ones. You can register there. They are 100% online, 100% free. And we hope to see you again next time. Thank you, Rodrigo, for the excellent presentation.
Thank you all for your time and interest.
Thank you. See you.
Till the next one.